What does grammar have to do with bacteria? Find out today on Hebrew Vocab Boost. Shalom lekulam, and welcome back to Hebrew Vocab Boost. Coming at you today from beautiful Portland, Oregon, and with a statue behind me of a couple of elephants that have absolutely nothing to do with today's topic. Today I'm talking about two related shorashim, Dalet Kof Kof and Dalet Kof Dalet Kof. It is really common in Hebrew to see two shorashim with the pattern ABB and ABAB, which have the same meaning, and it is assumed that they stem from a two-letter root AB. We saw this a few weeks ago with the roots Gimel Lamed Lamed and Gimel Lamed Gimel Lamed, which stemmed from the word Gal, which of course is just a Gimel and a Lamed. And of course there are many, many, many others. And such is the case with Dalet Kof, and the overriding theme is minutia. So let's take a look at some biblical uses. First, we have the adjective dak, which has all kinds of meanings of teeny tiny or thin or fine. We first see it in Genesis, where Pharaoh is having all of his dreams, and he has some dreams of sickly cows eating up healthy cows, and then also sickly sheaves of wheat overtaking the healthy sheaves of wheat. And of course, Joseph, the dream interpreter, tells him that both dreams mean the same thing. They mean that there is going to be 7 healthy years followed by 7 years of drought and famine. So dak is the Hebrew word that describes both the cows and the sheaves of wheat. And the JPS translates dak as gaunt when we're talking about cows, and they translate it as thin when we're talking about sheaves of wheat. It's also used to describe the manna that was provided while the Israelites were with Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, and for diseased hair, and for finely ground spices, and also dust, and also a soft murmuring sound. So besides the sound, we see that it's always describing really fine, minute particles. And then we have these 5 nouns. Dak and dek both are translated as powder. And dak with a kamatz is also used once to mean dwarf, a little person. Dak with a patach is translated as motes, which are fine particles of dust. And hadek is used for dust, and dok is used once for gauze, a finely woven, really thin, delicate material. So here are all the verb forms that appeared in my search of the Tanakh. This kind of looks like possibly 2 different binyanim, but it is really impossible for someone of my level of education to determine what is going on here. But I will say that all of these verbs were translated as some form of to crush, to beat, as in beating to dust, to thresh to dust, to reduce to dust, or to grind into dust. For the most part, it looked like it was being used mostly literally, as in something was literally being ground into dust. But there were a time or two where it seemed like maybe it was more figurative, as in we were going to crush a nation. So in modern times, we still have an adjective dak, which means thin or fine. And this does not mean thin versus heavy set, like as in a person. This is thin as in like a thin wire or fine hair. It can also be used for thin ice. And there's also another adjective, dakik, which means super, super thin. The reduplication at the end always adds an element of very much. And so dakik is often translated as like paper thin or razor thin. And dakut is just the noun made out of the adjective. So it means thinness or fineness. And this is a really common way of making nouns out of adjectives, is to add an ut suffix. It always makes the noun feminine, and it's just a really common, productive way of making nouns out of adjectives. Another noun is daka, which means minute, as in 1/60th of an hour or 60 seconds. Back in biblical times, they didn't have such precise units of time. They really didn't even have the word sha'ah, which means hour. That doesn't appear in the Tanakh. That in Hebrew, it does appear in Aramaic, the Aramaic counterpart. But so they definitely didn't have daka either. They did have a word rega, which means moment, which we still use in modern times, but they did not have anything like daka. Daka is a very new a neologism. And so many of the units of time in Hebrew have a dual form: shana, shnatayim, chodesh, chodshayim, shavua, shvuayim, yom, yomayim. And even the new sha'ah, sha'atayim, but daka does not have a dual form. If you need to say 2 minutes, you have to say shte dakot. And so one of my favorite words using this shoresh is chaydak, which means bacteria. And I really love it when Hebrew speakers resist bringing in borrowed words from somewhere else in the world and instead use words with their own shorashim. And so chai means life, and dak we know means small or minute, and so chaydak is a minute life form. So they tried to do a similar thing with the word virus. They have some kind of a word, it's not related to dak, that means virus, but it uses the Hebrew shorashim, and it just didn't take off. Everybody says virus. And so another one of my favorites is dikduk, which means grammar. It's literally the minutia of language. So many details, especially in Hebrew. And then a phrase related to dikduk is dikduke aniyut, which is used to describe someone who pays too much attention to the minute, unimportant details. And then there's also dikduke srad, which is the, quote, excessive strictness regarding the formal side of the office's work. Excessive bureaucratic procedures that delay the completion of a particular matter. In other words, red tape. And then lastly, we have a verb, ledakdek, which is, you can see it's a PL verb, binyan hameruba'im, because it has the 4-letter shoresh, Dalet Kof Dalet Kof. And it means to scrutinize, right? To take a really close look at the minute details. So present tense of this verb is medakdek, and past tense is dikdek. And one thing important about the past tense of PL meruba'im verbs is that they don't have the yod. Normally, PL verbs in the past tense have a yod to distinguish them from pa'al verbs. But because it's impossible for a pa'al verb to have a 4-letter shoresh, there's no way it could possibly be confused for a pa'al verb. So no need to put that yod in there. You just say dikdek, and it's Dalet Kof Dalet Kof. So that's it for today. Now you know all of the words from my 2 favorite shorashim, Dalet Kof Kof and Dalet Kof Dalet Kof. I mean, I am a language nut, so it only makes sense that I love tiktuk. And I do love just how versatile this shoresh is. So as always, if you have any questions or feedback, send it in the comments and I will do my best to respond. Hit like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to see more. Lehitraot papa'am abaa. See you next time.